Welcome back to the Lumiose Post, where we talk about all things Pokemon, and today we're going to be talking about kind of the big question on everyone's minds already, and that is, what will Pokemon's third thing be in this generation? Every generation ever since Sun and Moon, so Gen 7, has had three titles within it, and then we kind of got a bit of a mix-up in Sword and Shield, where there's always a game, then the third version of that game, or as of Gen 8, that becomes DLC, and then we get some kind of remake or an experimental game. So in Sword and Shield's case, in Gen 8's case rather, they did both. We got a true, like, one-to-one remake almost of Diamond and Pearl and Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, but we also got our experimental game in Legends Arceus. Whereas in Gen 7, our experimental game was also kind of a remake of Yellow, and that was Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. So what will be next? Now, we know what we want. Every fan wants Legends Johto, right? Everybody's wanting Legends Celebi or Legends Johto, Legends Lugia, whatever they want to call it. People are wanting a Legends style game set in the Johto region or Unova, but I do think that Johto will be the one that's next, because it has been it's been the longest amount of time between Johto and now than it has a Unova game and now, you know? So I do think Johto's next. Now, here's a part where I get a lot of angry comments. I don't think that there will be another Legends game. Not for a long time. Now, hear me out. I want there to be another Legends game. I really, really do. Legends Arceus is one of my favorite Pokemon games. I think it's easily in the top 3 favorites of my Pokemon games that I've played. And man, I mean, it was so good. It was so refreshing because it was very different. My critiques with it are super, super small, with the main one really only being that there was no player versus player in it. But either way, I don't think that we'll get another Legends Arceus game, or another Legends game, rather. And the reason why is because we very recently got the sales for the Pokemon games. At the beginning of this month, in fact, we got them. Now, we had, if you look on here, you can see that Legends Arceus is ranked lower than Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. So this means Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee outsold Legends Arceus. Now, there's a lot of factors here that I hope GameFreak takes into account, and that we all should take into account. For one, Legends Arceus is not 2 versions. It is 1 game. Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, there's Let's Go Pikachu and there's Let's Go Eevee, you know, so that's 2 games. And there are plenty of people who are going to purchase both. I mean, you know, like, people that are running official sites, like Joe Merrick, he's probably going to purchase both games, right? People who don't have friends to trade with are probably going to get both games so they can get all the version exclusives they want. Yeah, there's a lot of people that get both games. Now, Legends Arceus, again, you can't get both games, there's only 1. So another thing to take into account is that Pokemon games typically release right before the holiday season, and when there's big sales, here in the US at least, but also, you know, the holidays would be pretty worldwide. But, like, for example, in the US, there is, I don't know if this is something that happens outside the US, but there is Black Friday, and that always happens like a week after the Pokemon game is released. And this is a day where there's a bunch of sales on things, and so again, there's a lot of incentive for people to buy these Pokemon games. You know, if they have a kid or a grandkid or a nephew, niece, whatever, that likes Pokemon, well, Christmas is right around the corner, and what's this? There's a new Pokemon game, huh? Okay, yeah, well, you know, my nephew loves Pokemon. I'm gonna grab that and I'm gonna buy it for him. You know, so it's kind of unfair that Legends Arceus had to release in January after the holidays were already over, and Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl got to be the holiday game that time around. Furthermore, Pokemon kind of cut Legends Arceus's promotion cycle short. So Legends Arceus released on January 28th, 2022. Ever since COVID, all the years run together, you understand. But then, less than a month later, on February 27th, they announced Pokemon Scarlet and Violet to be releasing later that year. So it became this big issue of, okay, well, you know, if you haven't bought Legends Arceus yet, there were people that go, well, you know, I haven't bought Legends Arceus, they're releasing a new Pokemon game later this year, I'm just gonna wait for that one, you know. And then there is also the fact that Legends Arceus was very different from a Pokemon game. There are plenty of people who, you know, they like the formula of Pokemon, the traditional formula, and Legends Arceus just didn't match that criteria, which is totally valid, so they didn't play those games. Now, I definitely did not fall in that camp, but there are people like that, and that is totally fine to be like that. And that's a good question of the day. How did you feel about Legends Arceus? Were you one of the people who, you know, didn't play it because it was, you know, not traditional Pokemon formula, or did you play it? And if you did you have a blast with it, or were you like, nah, I like the classic formula more? But either way, I think all these things should be factored in when we look at Legends Arceus sales, but I do also think there's a chance that Game Freak still, even knowing these things, does something experimental again. They experimented with Let's Go. They experimented with Legends Arceus. They might have some more ideas up their sleeves for what they can play around with, and that will probably be our third game releasing in 2024. Now, what do I think this will be? Well, again, I do think this will be the Johto region. It's been the one that is, I guess, how do you word this? It has been the longest time since we've seen a Johto game versus any other region. So I do think that it will be a Johto game. Now, let's talk about what kind of experimental thing they could do with it. I think that there's a chance that they could do a remake of Johto where it is revisited in the current style of Pokemon games. So an open world Johto game. Now, I think that this would work because, you know, for one, they know that we like the remakes where they kind of take the game and bring it up to the modern standards, you know, like Pokemon Heart Gold Soul Silver, Pokemon Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, Fire Red Leaf Green. We did not like Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. We felt that, you know, I'm not speaking for everybody, but the majority felt that, you know, those games were too true to the original and not true to the current era of Pokemon games. So I think this would be a great way to acknowledge that and do that correctly. And then also, I think that this would be really cool to do with Johto, because with Johto, you could easily change up the story a little bit and say, all right, here's the deal with Johto. We have the Pokemon League that is shared by the Johto and the Kanto region. Well, that means that you just need 8 badges to participate in the Indigo Plateau's Elite Four. Now, this could mean that, you know, for one, they could do it where you need all 16 badges and you'll have to run around both regions to get them. Or it could be fun to even go, hey, you just need 8 of them. Go ahead and go. You know, if you want to do 3 from Johto, 5 from Kanto, that's fine. You want to do all 8 in Johto, that's cool too. You want to do 7 in Kanto and then only 1 in Johto, that's fine as well. Do what you want. And then make the other 8 like a post-game thing. Maybe even you beat those other 8 and that's when you get some kind of additional league type thing you can participate in. Maybe, you know, obviously I want a Battle Frontier, but it will probably just be 1 battle facility. But all that I think will be really, really neat. I do think also, because they would have to redesign the world to make it open world, I think that there's a chance that they could just say, hey, you know, now there are Johtonian forms. So there are Pokemon that previously didn't exist in the Johto region that do now, but with alternative forms. So very similar to what they did with Hisuian forms in Sinnoh. So like, for example, Nosepass. Don't know why that's the first one to come to my head, but it is. Nosepass does not live in the Johto or Kanto regions. So they could bring Nosepass back and say, oh, there's Johtonian Nosepass. Maybe even do Cantonian forms too. So you can get a Johtonian Nosepass, or you can find a Cantonian Beautifly. You know, things like that I think would make the game really interesting, and it would be a very customizable story because, you know, you can choose where to go between regions, which is kind of something that the, you know, Pokemon fan base has always like dreamed of, like this game where you can visit all regions. This is like a much miniaturized version of that, just sticking to the classic Johto formula of you can visit Johto and Kanto, but this time in any order, and I think that would be huge. You could also give new evolutions to Pokemon, you know, just like they did in Scarlet and Violet. You know, personally, I'd love to see some Johto or Kanto Pokemon get evolutions in this game. Seaking would be incredible to get an evolution in this game. that's always the one I'm thinking about now. Don't know why, but it is. But yeah, I think this would be really neat. There would also definitely be some features to make this game stand out a little more from Scarlet and Violet. Like, I'm sure that they could bring back an older gimmick to maybe spice things up in this game and make it different from Scarlet and Violet. So you wouldn't have the Terrastal phenomenon, but maybe they'd bring back Mega Evolution or Z moves, or maybe even both. We know that those two gimmicks can coexist with each other. There could also be some features that are not seen in the franchise yet. Like, you know, you have Pokemon clearly likes to take a lot of inspiration from Legend of Zelda, so maybe they would look at the latest Legend of Zelda game, the Tears of the Kingdom, and find some kind of features in that they'd want. Like, I think about the big one that people are having fun with is Link being able to build things now. You know, you're able to, like, fuse items together, build rafts and all this. Maybe they'd have a similar thing where instead of HMs for Pokemon, you would have to collect, like, I guess, skills. And with these skills, you could now build a raft, or you could build a hot air balloon to take you to other, you know, cities, you know, be your fly. All that, I think, would be super, super neat. I think it would fit a Johto and Kanto merged game really, really well. It would be a great way to dive into the lore. You could even have Team Rocket plots in Kanto and Johto, since they both share a villain team, and they can be kind of done in any order. And just, I don't know, maybe they'd scale to your level, maybe they wouldn't, like Scarlet and Violet didn't. But all of that, I think, would be really, really cool. This would be kind of like a dream game, and also on paper, I think it makes sense to do this, because I think this would be a lot of fans' dreams games. You know, especially if you're going to announce that, you know, the next game is not a Legends game, then I think this would be something that if you released, the fans would probably be okay with, you know. But yeah, be sure to let me know what you think about this. If a Legends or Let's Go game is not coming out this year, what kind of game do you think it'll be that they'll release? Let me know all that in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. You know, whenever we find out what's coming, we'll be talking about here. And until next time, I will see all of you later.